So I was attempting to make a video yesterday, and here I am again today, making the video. Not gonna say attempting because we're getting it in today. Just having a little issue yesterday, start and stopping. Didn't know how to start the video off. Honestly, that's the hardest thing, starting the videos off. Because once you're in the video, you're in the flow. You know what I'm saying? It's coming out naturally. But starting them off can be challenging. So I'm like, I'll just start off with some silence, some presence. That's always nice. Can't go wrong with that. That's kind of what I want to talk to you about, actually, is the place that the desire arose to make a video yesterday came from. And it wasn't coming from a place of presence. It wasn't from the spirit. It was from the mind. It wasn't from that intuitive inner voice of clarity and discernment that I would consider a flowering of the heart. It wasn't an etheric import. It wasn't something that I felt inspired to do. It was not inspired, it was desired. So it felt forced. It didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel right. So I'm like, I'll revisit it tomorrow, and I'm not going to give up on it, but I want it to feel right. I want it to be integrous, come from a place of integrity. Any video on this channel is of any worth has came from a place that I would consider a flowering of the heart, behind the veil of thought, not from a place of analysis, not coming from the mind, not coming from a place of force. So I got to get a video on there. Got to get a video on there for the algorithm. I haven't posted in a minute. I got to put something up there. So, obviously feel a certain sense of responsibility as a content creator. Not just a YouTube creator, but anybody interacting with the world. Whatever you do, whatever you create, you feel a certain sense of responsibility. You got people following you or watching your videos or buying your products, whatever you do, you feel responsible for them. So I haven't posted a video in a minute, and the desire to make a video yesterday came from kind of a place of pressure, force. It was all internal, and nobody's forcing me to do it, obviously. It was all mental. So it's coming from a place of analysis instead of presence. And that's a big distinction. Now, that's also kind of what I want to talk to you today about, too, is I made a community post yesterday on the community tab. I said, invest in yourself. You're the surest thing in the world. Now, how do you convey to somebody that to focus on themselves, but at the same time that themselves that they think themselves to be doesn't exist? Because they are existence itself. They are that pure awareness, that unchanging stillness, that silence behind the veil of thought. And I would consider that the spiritual world. And then there's the material world. And of course, we're making distinctions. There's fundamentally no distinctions. The manifested world and the eternal spiritual world are one. Nature is ever changing. The external world, the material world, is constantly changing, but it's eternal. It's cyclical. So though it's constantly changing, it's still rooted in that rock solid, exquisitely gentle presence. And the video today is coming from that space. Yesterday it wasn't. It felt forced. It didn't feel right. And that community tab post I made, invest in yourself. You're the surest thing in the world. Because you are the world. Oftentimes, people have a tendency to focus on that which is outside of themselves. And there's levels to it. First, you have to really focus on yourself to come to realize that there is no yourself. That self and other imply each other. That there is no distinction between subject and object. Oftentimes when we're overly intellectual, overly analytical, identifying with the mind, we create an internal analyzer and subjective analysis as if there was a distinction. And the truth is that there is no qualitative difference between subject and object. Everything is one. Now, somebody could understand that intellectually, but not necessarily feel it. So then the question arises, how do we effectively realize that there is no separation? That I am one with the world. I understand it, but I don't feel it. So, like I said, there's levels to it. And now I say levels, I'm not talking about hierarchical. I'm not talking about a hierarchy. In the material world, the conceptual world, oftentimes people interpret the world in terms of hierarchy. But in the spiritual world, there is no such hierarchy. Everything is equal. It's impartial. It's all rooted in that same place, that eternal place. It's always with us. Even if we're overthinking. No matter what we may be experiencing, that presence is always with us. So it's good to understand that intellectually at least. Because that can alleviate a lot of tension and unnecessary resistance or forcing or worry or any sort of negative emotion. Because once you break through to that awareness, it fundamentally changes you, it transforms you, and who you are and how you interact with the world and what you say and your actions. You want everything to be in congruence. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions all to be congruent, to be integrous. And they are naturally when they come from that place of presence. It's always with us. So focus on yourself. That was the intent of the post yesterday. Invest in yourself. You're the surest thing in the world. Because you are the world. There's no separation. There's no independent identity, independent reality. There's one reality. But based on people's subjective experience, there could be many different worlds. A lot of people living in their own worlds, not rooted in that presence. And intellectually, we all do that, because the conceptual world naturally is full of distinctions. But it's good to be able to compartmentalize that and to be able to interact with the world in a way where you're still rooted in that presence, even though you're naturally using your mind, I say your, but it's not something we identify with. It's a tool. The mind is a tool. It's not who we are. We're not a concept. Alex is a label to denote a particular character, a piece, a part, a parcel of something that is fundamentally beyond labels, beyond description even. we can try to talk about it all we want. I could tell you, stay in the moment, stay in the now. But that itself is a concept. Now is a concept. When you're in that space, there's no concept. So to try to talk about it with concepts it can be challenging. But it's kind of fun to attempt to put words to that which really can't be described. But at the same time, it can, because you can really read something and feel it very deeply. It's a very visceral sensation. You read something, you're like, whoa. Because it came from that presence. The author was in that presence. And the concepts came from that place. So when you read it, that naturally transfers to you. You can really imbibe that energy, that presence.